We're coming to you live from Middletown, Kentucky. My name is Milton Ali, and this is the Investor Tribe Podcast. And what you are seeing today is our second installment of the $1 Million Panel. These are regular individuals, just every day, living their lives, yet they've been able to control over $1 million in real estate each. And so we're going to get into what they think, how they got there, what was their journey, and it's absolutely amazing. And we're going to learn a lot from these people today. The collective wisdom here is millions of dollars at this table. So I want you to think about what questions you have that you can ask them as well. I have several questions for them. And so before we get into it, we're going to have the panel introduce themselves, starting with you, Jessica, and we'll just keep on going. Introduce yourself, how long you've been in the business, and maybe how many properties you currently control.
My name is Jessica Yu. I have been licensed in real estate since 2012, and I've been investing, well, on and off, I guess, since around the same time. I like to buy and hold, and I think I control around 10, 11, something like that. Did I answer everything?
Yeah, go for it. Cool. Yeah, Slava.
My name is Slava Furs. I've been in the business going on 8 years, and I do fix and flips, fix and holds, and we have around 25 units.
Awesome.
Hey everyone, I'm Stacey Duvall. I am a full-time investor. I am a full-time real estate broker. I'm a full-time property manager. There's probably some other stuff in there too. Ron and I do mostly single family. We have a package of single family long-term rentals here in Louisville. We have 3 short-term rentals, 2 mid-term rentals, and we are looking at a cannabis facility in Maine. We are looking at laundromats. We are looking at oil and gas, and our next project is a 28-plex.
Oh.
So we all want to know about the cannabis facility.
I will update you
yes.
when I get all the details.
I'm asking for a friend.
Oh, yeah.
Good evening. I'm Jack May. I'm the broker and owner of May Team Realtors. Currently, I have about 15 doors. I manage 80 properties, though, for other folks as well. I'm real heavy into flipping. This year, I'm on a goal and on pace to flip 40 houses this year. So that's my number one love. I still do sell real estate for other clients, and that's kind of my story. How far will it go? I don't know. I'm currently getting a dealer's license for manufactured housing. They passed a law here recently in Kentucky that says you can put a manufactured home anywhere where there's a vacant lot and not an HOA. So, there's a lot of vacant lots around that this, I think, will be a big play here shortly.
Thank you guys so much. And everybody here has built success in different ways. And we would like to know the short version of how do you think, or how did you get where you got right now? And how did your journey start? And what was the biggest turning point in your investing journey?
I think safety is in numbers. I really do. I think if you're going out and flipping one house, and if you lose money on that, you've lost money. Or if I'm flipping 6 houses, the chances of me losing money on all 6 is pretty slim. So, that's the main thing that I like to tell people is don't get afraid. People want to start out with $30,000 properties when in reality, it's a better buy to buy that $300,000 property and make the quick money on it rather than everybody's fighting over the cheaper property. So, that's my advice. But, you'll hear different advice, and all these people are great and do it their own way, and they all are successful in what they do, and I'm here to learn from them. So.
Thank you. And he lives true to that. So we did a deal a month ago, 2 months ago now, and he bought a $300,000 property. He sold it for a little bit more. and I had a buyer. We bought it, and that was quick. And we were, from the time you owned it to the time we closed, was about 45 to 50 days, I believe. And so good stuff. Good stuff. Anyone else like to take that?
Could you repeat the question again?
So the question is the short version of your journey, and what was the biggest turning point in your investing journey?
I mean, I'll just say, for one, I'm an immigrant. I come from a family and parents that we have no such thing as generational wealth. It's really, that's what I'm doing. So I'm starting that for my family. And I got into real estate when I was 20. And I thought that as a real estate agent, I got in as a real estate agent. As a real estate agent, it was hard for me to sell a product that I didn't own. It's like someone being at the Apple store and they own an Android. So so I was intrigued to always own investments in rental properties, but also intrigued to improve myself as a real estate agent. So it was kind of like that was my two reasons for buying my first investment. And I didn't have any money. Well, I did a little bit, and I put some money down, but I found somebody who was willing to lend me the rest. And funny enough, it wasn't these big hard money companies that we have here. It was just some retired plumber who opened up the idea on how private money lending works, like real private, like just old guy who just wants to make some interest on his money. And the turning point for me was realizing that a good deal will always bring money. Like a good deal will bring investors. So for that person who doesn't have any money in their account, it's okay if you find something that's got a 40% profit margin. I'll lend you the money, and I'm sure everyone on this table will lend you money for a certain return. So the turning point for me was just there's no excuse not to get a property if it's a good deal.
I will say for me, I've had less time recently in just the season of life that I'm in, being a parent to young kids. And so one of the turning points for me was actually willing to outsource the work instead of trying to GC everything myself. I'm ashamed to say that I sat on an Airbnb for 2 years and I missed out on all of that income. And then once my buddy who was a GC finally stepped in and took over, he had a house 2 doors down, and I think he bought it after me and had it finished before me. And he was like showing me like, hey, Jessica, look at this. I just got this booking for Derby. Man, you're missing out. When are you going to get that house finished? I was like, oh my goodness. And so, in just trying to like control everything, I decided to let go, and it was the best decision ever because I wouldn't, because I'm a recovering perfectionist, and I'm like, I have to control everything.
Recovering?
Yes, it's a journey. And by me just like stepping aside and just, and he knew like, okay, it's been 2 days, she hasn't picked out a fixture, I'm gonna pick it, and it got done. And then it went into service, and then I was like, oh, you know what? Maybe I'll do that for the rest. And so like, well, actually, after that, I did try to do another project by myself. And of course, it wasn't really going anywhere. And he's like, do you need my help? And I was like, you know what? Actually, yeah, I want you to go ahead and do that. But yes, it's going to cost a little bit more, but we won because it got done. And it's funny because I became that, like my dad bought another house the same time that I did. We finished before he did. And he was doing the work himself. So anyways, that's kind of one of the turning points. It's just like knowing when to ask for help and leverage it out so that you can focus on other things that you're better at.
That's awesome. And so my next question is, you guys have a lot of experience, and can you share with us what is working right now in this market that people that you may think others are missing?
It's all in the buy. I mean, there are lots of deals out there, and you got to be careful with when a wholesaler says, hey, the ARV on this one's $200,000 and it's going to take $40,000 worth of work. And I walk in there and I'm like, well, first of all, the ARV on it is $190, and it's going to take $50,000 to fix it up. Yeah, exactly. So I think, I think this business, you can make money in any market. It's all in the buy. And I think that people make mistakes with, once that, that wholesaler offers them a price, and they might offer them lower, and the wholesaler wants to counter it and wants to argue and say, well, I need this because I got it under contract. Well, I'm sorry, I can't give you that money, or I'm not going to make money. So this week I had a wholesaler try to sell me a property for $135,000. And after I went out there, and it needed $60,000 worth of work, and they were trying to get it closed before the sale came up, the foreclosure sale. I can get it closed for you. I did my numbers. It was $60,000. I says, I got to get this house for $100,000, $35,000 less than what he was listed at. And he said, are you sure you can't give me $135,000? I said, no, I can't give you $135,000. I don't feel like losing money. And so about 4 hours later, he called me. He goes, I got the seller down to $120,000. And I said, you didn't hear me. I said, I want it for $100,000 or I'm not interested. Called me back 3 hours later and says, I got him all the way down to $105,000. And I said, well, listen, when you get him to $100,000, I'll buy it. And he did. He got it to $100,000, and now I've got that property under contract. So stick to your guns.
Yeah. What is working right now in this market that you think other people are missing? That's the question.
I think it's really important to go back to the basics. And for me, what that looks like is there's a big hype around PPC marketing and online marketing and buying up these websites and these forums, which is great, and I do it. But the best ROI, in my opinion, is telling everybody that you buy homes. And the more and more you put that into people's brains, the more they start thinking of you. And for me, the best profit margins, the best profit I've ever gotten on flips are the ones that just people think of me like, hey, my mom passed away. I'm the owner of the estate. I know you buy houses. Do you want to buy it? And it's like you're getting in before Kevin Hart from Joe Homebuyers goes and gets it under contract, and it's no competition. And I just offer what works for me with a little bit more margin involved, and it's a win-win and make money. So for me, it's just sticking to the basics, letting everyone that you buy homes.
I forgot the question.
Sorry for what the initial question was.
What is still working in this market?
It's definitely the BRRRR method. I mean, here's the thing. The people will always tell you that there are not homes available that don't work, that don't meet the criteria. And they're right. There are always plenty of homes that won't work and won't meet the criteria. You just have to keep digging. If this was easy, everyone would do it. And the best advice I can give anybody is keep trying, right? You can put offers in, 50, 60 offers in, and people will get exhausted and they'll just stop. What they don't realize is that one offer that makes you $40,000 or $50,000 can very literally change your life. I messed up and made a fortune in real estate because I'm an idiot, right? It's not hard to do. You just have to recognize your mistakes and get better. I house hacked a house when I was a kid, and I rented out all the bedrooms. I used all that rent money to pay down the house, thinking I'd done well for myself, and I paid it off. My boss came to me in my turning point moment that, Milton talks about, and he kind of made fun of me. He's like, hey, man, you miss your mortgage payment? I was like, of course not. He's like, you save your $900 a month? And I was like, well, yeah. And he's like, good for you. It's like, how much money did it make you? And I'm like, what? It didn't make me any money. And he goes, and that's why you're never going to make any money. It took me a while to figure out that what he was telling me to do, to learn in my own way, was to use my property that I'd created, use all that leverage to buy more properties and keep going in and keep trying. The first one was hard. It was awful. I didn't make a lot of money, but I got better. And every single time I've made more and more money throughout the process. So really the best advice I can give is don't quit and pay attention to the people around you. They will give you signals of what you're doing wrong.
Yeah, I'll just chime in. Similar to the story Jack was telling, I see it all the time with our borrowers. Like, don't get too hung up on one deal, because I'm guessing you all been doing this a long time. Is this a true statement? There's always another deal, right?
Oh, yeah.
if this one doesn't work, there'll be another one tomorrow and the next day and the next day. So I really resonated with what Jack was describing of, do the numbers work? If the answer is yes, go for it. If not, stick to your guns.
And so what are investors still doing like it's 2021 that's hurting them today? Because the market has shifted from that time.
And I got a good answer for that because I see it a lot. They're sticking to their price and they want a certain amount of money for the house. And I'll say, well, how's that house going? And she goes, well, it's just not selling. It's been on the market for 3 months. I'm like, well, where's the price? She goes, well, I know it's worth what it's worth. And I said, no, it's not. It's not worth that. People aren't paying that for it. I am very quick to drop the price. If it's not selling, even if I'm going to lose money, I'm going to drop that price until it sells and use that money to buy something that's profitable. You know, it doesn't happen often, but it does happen. And you've got to be diligent with dropping that price, because if you're borrowing hard money, that is ticking and it is killing your profit on something else.
The challenge I see some investors make is that they're still thinking that it's 2021 in terms of prices and interest rates. Everybody knows interest rates have doubled and tripled since then, and they're never going, y'all know that it's never going back to 3%, right? They're just never going to be that low again. So they're so conditioned to think, oh, I have to get at this price and I can't get these numbers to work. The numbers can work if you utilize the different tax strategies other than just cash flow. Don't get me wrong, cash flow is the most important thing in any transaction. But if you're also able to cost seg it, depreciation, all those other things, it sometimes makes up for numbers that aren't as high in cash flow.
Agreed. I think a mistake that flippers are making right now, that they could have gotten away with in 2021, is skipping out on making certain improvements. In 2021, you could probably just paint cabinets and do laminate countertops and get away with it. Now you really can't, especially in certain areas. Like if you try that in Wyandotte, you're going against 10 other flips. So if you're the one out of the 10 that's got laminate countertops and you painted the cabinets and you skipped out on certain things, it's not going to go well for you. And if you have to put that you're painting cabinets instead of replacing them to make the flip work, it's not a good flip. You shouldn't do that.
What's Wyandotte?
Wyandotte is a part of town in Louisville. It's in the 40215 zip code, in between Taylor Boulevard and 3rd Street. So like the reason why I said that area is because a lot of flippers go in there because your acquisition price is lower than what the average sales price is in Louisville. And the numbers are pretty good there, and you can get some good deals over there. So that's why I brought it up as an example.
All right, and so what numbers or metrics are you paying the closest attention to right now before buying a deal?
I really kind of feel my way around as far as, how tough is the deal? I mean, how much work is that property going to take? Because people will ask me, well, what kind of percentage do you want to make? Or how much do you want to make on that flip? And I really look at it as how much work is involved. Mm-hmm. If it's just a basic flip where I'm do a kitchen, bathroom, paint, and carpet, it's $35,000 worth of renovations. I'm going to want to make $20,000 on it. I figure I can do that work in 45 days or less, and then another 45 days to 60 days to sell it. So I'm all out in 4 months. I've sold that house. That's my goal. I don't always reach that goal, and there are surprises that keep you from reaching that goal, but that's what I try to do. If it's a big flip, I'm going to want to make 30 or 40 on it, so.
Anyone else like to take that on?
I'll say that another important metric that I look at is not just the total profit, but how much am I making per month? Because if it's going to cost me 40 grand, if I'm going to make 40 grand, but I know it's going to take me 9 to 12 months to get it done, I might not do it because the risk, and also it depends on how high the loan amount is. Because if it's a $600,000 loan amount, my holding cost, if it's hard money, are out the roof. So like I got to make sure that I'm budgeting for time for it to sit on the market. For repairs, that's another thing I feel like people don't do is they don't budget in for repairs during the inspection period. So that's another thing you got to do. But the two metrics for me that I look at the most is how much am I going to make per month? What's my dollar per month? And then obviously holding costs are super important. If you're doing hard money, just like Jack said, like, yeah, just let go of that thing because every month you're going to be losing if you don't drop the price. So.
Yeah. And so I find that to be so true because when I'm in the middle of a deal, it seems that every day you own that property, you're losing money because of the interest payment. Every day you own the property, you're losing money. And so the key is to get rid of that money, get out of that money as soon as possible, but yet sell it as soon as possible. So yeah, go ahead, John.
Just for perspective, I walk into every property I own with the intention of holding them until I die. That's my personal strategy, right? And with that strategy in mind, one thing that is most important to me, the metric I follow, is the cash on cash return rate. That's how long it's going to take me to get the money back that I put into the property back out of it and in my hand. As an example, if I have to come out of pocket $20,000 and I'm only making $200 a month, I'm not going to get back to zero for 100 months. And once you factor in maintenance and all the others, it's about 125 months. That is not a solid cash on cash return rate. I practice the Burr method where I borrow his money and then refinance it to mine after the home has been fixed up, so that in an ideal situation, if I've created approximately 25 to 30% equity, I'll be left with none of my own cash in the property, which means I don't have anything laid out. So as long as I don't have any of my own money in it, and the rent rolls approximately 125% of the payment or the rent is 125% of the payment, then you will probably cash flow for eternity and you won't have any of your own money in it. So it really doesn't matter what happens. And that's what I focus on, is not actually putting my own dollars in it so that I can put them on 30-year fixed mortgages, forget they exist when I hand them to my property manager until I'm 60 and I call my bank and go, hey, give me $1 million against all my properties so I can go retire in Guam or wherever I go.
Brilliant.
So Guam?
No, I mean, it's
Okay, just hey, it's all good. First thing that came to mind. And so now I really want you guys to be thinking about this next question. What was a mistake or loss that taught you the most? A loss or a mistake that you made that taught you the most?
I'm going to say I loved the neighborhood that I bought this house in, and so I paid way too much for it. I was so anxious in buying this property that I didn't do my due diligence to see everything that was wrong with it. It had structural problems. It had drainage problems. It had a forest that I had to cut down that cost me a lot of money, and I lost a lot of money on that property. But I fell in love with the neighborhood. You know, it was a ritzy neighborhood here in town in the East End, and it was a big house. So, you know, it was not a real good, but it was a learning experience. I'll never do it again. So,
I was anxious for a deal once or twice or 3 times. I was anxious to get a deal done, and that anxiousness sometimes, you know, can cause you to overlook some glaring issues like foundation work, or you get a very cheap inspection that's not thorough and you discover all the problems later. And so the key is to get a thorough inspection sometimes on some of these homes that may look okay.
I 100% recommend, especially to those that have probably done a flip or two at minimum, even if you've done 20, 30, and 40 flips, have a foundation guy come to you on all the properties. I just had one that I bought in Valley where it needed I think 17 piers installed. Wow. And here's the great thing about it. The quote was high, and I literally, whatever my contract price was, because I put in my contract that it's contingent upon a foundation inspection. So it was contingent upon that. And I literally just told him, hey man, like, My guy told me it was going to be around 40 grand to get this done. I have to reduce it by 40 grand. I encourage you to go call all the other foundation companies, and if you get a quote for cheaper, then we can drop it for less than that. But I'm at 40 grand less, and I told him who to call. Wink, wink. It was somebody I knew would be more expensive than my guy, and yeah, they dropped it by 40 grand, and I bought it. So I learned, the reason why I learned from that is because I used to not bring foundation guys into properties, and I never had a really, really, really big repair, but definitely like $10,000 worth of foundation work that I didn't expect. So
That can kill your profit.
oh yeah, absolutely. So that's one of the things I learned. Another thing too is I mentioned not painting the cabinets. I mean, not replacing the cabinets, just painting them. I bought a flip in Fern Creek. I went on the bare minimum on everything. And I'm probably going to lose like $15,000 on that flip just from molding costs, and the price too. But yeah, so those are my 2 lessons I learned.
Yeah.
I'm going to say the same thing that most other longtime investors like us say is we didn't buy enough. We didn't buy houses we should have because of limiting beliefs, or it's $1,000 more than I want to pay.
Preach it, sister.
And we should have bought so much more.
I've learned a lot from working with other investors too, because I think for me, I underwrite so conservatively that I can't say that I've had like a huge, like I've bounced back from all my mistakes. But I would say another thing to add on is sewer and crawl space. I had an investor who made $0 because, and I told him when he was flipping the house, I said, hey, check the crawl space because I know there are issues when the inspector comes. He didn't do it, or he forgot about it. Inspector came, checked the crawl space, boom, profit gone.
You bought a house, not you, but your client bought one of the houses that my clients failed to check the crawl space, failed to check and do a very thorough inspection on the property, and all of their profit was ate up in correcting. They literally put a vapor barrier down, but didn't solve the water problem. So the vapor barrier was underwater.
Nice.
And that's not what you're supposed to do. Yeah. And so it is so important to be thorough. And so, yeah, I mean, that was a horrific deal. And, you know, we had to fix the problem and spend a lot of money to fix the problem. So your client was happy, but my investors were really unhappy. And so if you had to start over today with limited money, what strategy would you what strategy would you use to build wealth in real estate? So I'm gonna paint the picture for you. It's 2026, okay? You had to start over. You're not on this $1 million panel. You're in the audience today. And you would have to start over right now. What would you do? And I'm gonna bring this over I'm gonna include John and Eric on this too. You started over, you don't have what you have today. What would you do?
Well,
we would. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to jump for you. We would do exactly what we did. I think we did it really well. We started in the West End because cash flow was really important to us at that time when we started. We did a hard money loan. We borrowed the money for the rehab and did the BRRRR, refinanced it, pulled whatever equity we had out of it, and put a tenant in it. And that was our formula for building our portfolio as large as it is we started in the West End. That worked good for us.
I think I would have house hacked. I would have done what John did. And I would have, because my first property I bought, my dad said, whatever you do, don't buy a condo. Whatever you do, never buy a 1-bedroom. And I bought a pretend 1-bedroom condo as my first property. Like it wasn't it wasn't like a legit 1-bedroom because the wall didn't like touch the ceiling. It did just like, you know. Anyway, I still have that today. It's great. And I rented it out. But I would have because I was like, oh, I'm too scared. So like, I don't want to get a big house and like have to maintain it, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I would have house hacked and I would have just kept doing it. And I would have kept coming to stuff like this.
That's a good answer.
Thank you.
Well, I think the panel's touched on it, and that's to say, you know, gosh, if I'd have known now what I knew, you know, or knew then what I know now, I would have bought so much. I didn't really start investing until about 8 years ago is all. So I've been a real estate agent for 30 plus years, you know, and if I would have started way back when, and granted, I like to travel. I like the finer things. We got a boat. We got an RV. We do it all. And I just try to stay ahead of my wife is what I do. And but even amongst all that, you know, we still make a lot of money flipping houses. And gosh, I mean, I'm on pace to do 40 houses this year. Last year I did 20. The year before I only did 10. You know, where's it going to go? I don't see a reason why I couldn't flip 100 houses in a year or more. You know, you just got to find the people to get it all done. I still only work the same amount of hours today as I did 3 years ago, but I'm doing a lot more business.
All right, I'm going to be a little bit more granular, and I'm going to tell you exactly how to do it as fast as humanly possible. First, what you do is you get an hourly job that's as high an hourly rate as possible. Think something in a warehouse, $22, $24 an hour, okay? You're going to go and you're going to apply for an FHA loan with down payment assistance, and you're going to use your tax return to cover the closing costs if you need them, if the seller won't. You're going to go to find a duplex. You're going to rent out the other side of the duplex. You're going to make sure both of the duplexes have at least 2 bedrooms. In the one you live in, you're going to rent out the other bedroom, so you have 2 separate tenants on each side. Now, you're going to wait 1 year because that's the requirement for FHA. Once you've been in that house for a year, you're going to take all the profits from the rent that you've been saving the entire time, and you're going to do it again, but you're going to do it with a conventional loan, and you're going to go buy another duplex with only 5% down. Now you have 4 units. They should all be cash flowing, and you'll probably be making a couple $1,000s a month, and you can do it in about 2 years. And you can do it with $22 an hour. This isn't a joke. This isn't a game. This doesn't exaggerate it. My brother literally has a handicap, and he is doing this right now by himself. We put him at work at Dynacraft down off Dixie Highway. He qualified off $24 an hour because he worked night shift and did it full time. If he's able to do it, literally anyone is. That is from 0 up.
Nice. That's great.
Advice.
That's a great answer.
I think I would just call John Rickert and say, let's go.
Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to shift over to the audience. So if there's anyone in the audience that has any questions, we'll just shift over to the audience and have the audience ask a few questions.
Stacey, besides your beautiful, sexy husband, what is the best investment you've ever made?
Great question.
I was so thrown off by this question. The best investment we have made is getting into short-term rental properties. We have a handful of them, and we have a couple of commercially zoned STRs here in Louisville. We have one in Red River Gorge, we have one in Clarksville, and we have one in Florida. And it's a lot more work than a long-term rental because you have so much turnover, but it is unbelievably profitable and so much fun.
Okay.
So we have an Airbnb on Rough River. Seems like it's getting pretty competitive, prices versus quality. And do you have any recommendations for how for it to perform? We operate pretty average, so we're not above and beyond or the top 10%, right? So do you have any advice?
It's a great question. If I hear one more person say the Airbnb market is oversaturated, I'm going to just lose it. it's not markets that are saturated, it's bedroom counts that are saturated. So look at if you can make a bedroom somewhere else. Please don't do bunk beds. No adult wants to sleep in a bunk bed. I know. I say this with love. And look at your competition in your price range. Look and see what the other hosts are offering. Look at how the design layout is. Look at the amenities they provide. And then just be better. Rough River is such a cool area. I've not looked at any of the properties there, but just look at your competition and see what they're doing, and then just be better than them.
How are you guys dealing with how would you deal with this one question here? Would you prefer cheaper money, a cheaper house, or cheaper labor?
Yes.
Which one do you prioritize over the other? Because you often can find cheaper homes, but maybe the labor isn't as cheap, or the money may not be cheap. Or so you get where I'm going, because there is one or the other, and it's which one would you prioritize?
Well, the one that's the hardest to get is cheaper money. That's the hardest. So if that's the hardest, that's the one that I would choose. I can always find a cheap house. I can always find cheap labor, but cheap isn't always quality. But cheap money is like, the hell, that's quality. That's the quality is cheap. So yeah, for me, the easy answer is cheap money.
And I agree. I agree 100% with that answer. I was really lucky when I got heavy into investing 8 years ago to be hooked up with a lady who was lending the hard money when the rates around here were 3%. So she was lending me hard money at 7%, and she's still lending me money at 7%.
Oh.
And I right now have $3.5 million of her money that I've got spread out over a bunch of flips.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I guess we can shut this down, right?
So to follow up on that, Stacey, you talked about how tax incentives and things were really something that we've done really well, and things that most people don't think about. They really consider cash flow. So I'd like for John and you to both talk about what are ways for people who do flip 40 houses a year that pay 30% taxes on all that profit. What are things that they can do to help offset that huge waste of money that they're giving away to Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and everybody else that's getting all the real tax incentives?
What a brilliant question. You are brilliant. I actually just asked Jack that question. I didn't know that he was flipping that many houses. I knew he's a great experienced flipper. And I said, what are you doing about taxes? I'm so curious about how that works. One of the things that we have focused so much of our time on is learning the tax code. That's not very exciting. It's not very sexy, but it is an enormous contributing factor to our success, is that we understand the tax code and how it benefits real estate investors and business owners. So I'd like to throw that to John and get his input.
For me and for what I see, I don't flip very often, but I do watch a whole lot of other people do it, provide the financing for it, and I'm in the range of it. The overwhelming vast majority of them are doing things like 1031 exchanges to roll their tax bill onto the next property if that's an applicable scenario for them, which is basically where any money that you've made, you're rolling it into your next business. The IRS calls it a like-kind exchange, and as long as you're exchanging it for something similar, the IRS lets you defer the tax payment until you sell that object, right? Well, when you do that, if you do it long enough and you end up putting it into trust, and again, consult your CPAs and trust attorneys for this, but if you put it in a trust, there's a thing called a death tax loophole. Non-politically, when Trump was talking to Hillary and he said, you won't close the loophole because your friends use it, this is what he's talking about. When you have real estate in a trust and all that equity has been built up in a 1031 exchange, if it's properly protected and regulated, when you die and you hand it to your heirs, that tax bill dies with you. So in theory, if I bought a $100,000 property, it appreciated to 150. I sold it and transferred that 50,000 of profit to another property tax-free and let it grow for 50 years, and then I pass away. My heirs will never pay taxes on those gains. That is the most common way that they are getting around 1031 exchanges. Also, the big beautiful bill opened up bonus depreciation, which in short lets you depreciate an entire property this year, the day you buy it, rather than having to hedge it over so many years. And third, least common for rental property owners, but much more common for short-term investment property owners, is cost segregation studies. Basically, the IRS says that everything depreciates in a house around 28 years in time. When you do a cost segregation study, a company comes out and tells you, well, your dishwasher lasts 10 years, the wood here lasts 20, and so on. This allows you to depreciate the home faster, and because you can depreciate the home faster, you can write that off on your taxes. On years that you have big purchases, large income, or tax deferments that you want to skip, a 1031 or taking advantage of bonus depreciation for an Airbnb are huge advantages because they can lower your taxable income directly.
Well, and I'll also say one thing, that, correct me if I'm wrong, John, but there's also accelerated depreciation. And accelerated depreciation is my number one hack for taxes. So like Jack's about to flip 40 homes, but if he keeps some of them and uses accelerated depreciation, that offsets the capital, doesn't offset, but it lowers the taxable income. The beautiful thing about accelerated depreciation is for those of you that are trying to scale, that accelerated depreciation in the eyes of the loan officer is counted back as income. So I could have so much accelerated depreciation to where my taxable income is $0, but that accelerated depreciation gets counted back as income in the eyes of the loan officers. So that is like the biggest cheat code in the world. So
good stuff. Any other questions?
Yep.
Yeah, go ahead.
I know. I just make fun. Flip on it more house.
Bonus depreciation.
it's different.
Thank you all for all the valuable insight you all have been giving. It's been great so far. But a lot of you all started as agents and eventually transitioned into ownership and investing in things. What do you think separates the people who stay stuck chasing transactions from the people who eventually build long-term wealth and ownership?
I didn't hear what he was saying.
Can you repeat that a little bit louder, please?
Yeah.
I was saying a lot of you all started as agents and then transitioned into ownership. And what do you think separates most people who stay stuck chasing transactions from the people who eventually build long-term wealth and ownership?
Fear. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's fear. The younger you are, the more riskier you should be. So you should just say, screw it, and just do it. That's it. It's just fear that's stopping people.
That's true. When I first started, I did my first deal that I bought, and before I had that one sold, I bought my second one. And then I kind of just plateaued for a while. And fast forward to 7 years later, I'm trying to buy every one that I can find that's a deal. And somebody walks up to me and they say, hey, I'll take any of the ones that you don't want that are deals. I'm like, you're not going to get any of them because I'm going to buy them.
I say the same thing.
Yeah. That's such an important question, Milton. And I've been asked that question a lot on podcasts. And I think fear is a huge part of why more agents aren't investors. And I just read a statistic recently that says less than 10% of agents are investors. And that is mind-blowing to me.
That is.
Mind-blowing that it's that low.
As an investor and agent, I can tell you that when I speak with agents, the conversation, because when I first got into the business, the conversation goes a little something like this. The first few transactions I did were people that were renting out properties, and they were selling from the nightmare tenant. There was a shooting in one of the properties, so we had to renovate it, get it ready. And it was, they tore up the house, so now I want to sell it and get out of it. So when you're talking to agents and they're going and they can see those horror stories and that I haven't heard you guys share. So if you guys can share a horror story, I think it'll be a little bit more balanced, because it helps to understand that we learn from our failures, or we can learn from other people's failures, right? Because I know I've blown it. I know I've messed up. I know I've lost money. I've had to go home and tell my wife, hey, I lost $20,000. Luckily, I was making $30,000, so that was okay. But I did have to have that conversation. Hey, we lost this because of this. They broke into the house, or they stole all the equipment, or they stole all the materials, and now I got to spend another $5,000 in materials. And so I do think people hear those horror stories and run.
They do, but as I mentioned earlier, I think safety's in numbers. There's nothing. I had a teacher one time that I was renting a house to, and she was a sweetheart. She had 2 little kids, and she rented from me for 2 years. And the 3rd year, we had to evict her because she met up with a guy that was no good, and he was on drugs, and she got on drugs, and they ripped the house up. There's nothing I could do about that. She was a sweetheart, a school teacher here for Jefferson County, and that's what happened. But when you look at it, I manage 80 properties right now. If I was having those problems, I wouldn't be in that business. You just be careful with screening your tenants. That's your number one goal. Even if it takes longer to get it rented, that's okay. Just screen them and make sure that they're good before you put them in there. But no matter what you do, you can have issues. But the more you buy, the better off you are.
I'm going to play a little devil's advocate here. I don't think real estate investing is for everybody. And that's okay. Some people, and that's why you have those investors who call you to sell their property. They're like, I tried it, it wasn't for me. Or it may not be the right season, or they're cashing out so they can go to Guam, right? And so I don't necessarily want to say that, because I've talked to successful agents, and I know they do a lot of business, and they're like, I just invest in the market, or I invest in, maybe to do commercial or something, right? But I do know that if it's not your cup of tea, it's okay.
And yeah, I definitely appreciate that. And we talk to people all the time that real estate investing may not be for you. It may be that you're a very good home inspector. You may be a very good roofer. You may be a very good contractor. And you can make a lot of money. However, you build wealth when you're not working on a house. You build wealth in your sleep. And you can make a lot of money doing transactions. You can make a lot of money doing a lot of cool things, but the key to that wealth is being able to build the portfolio so that you can make money when you're not working. And so any other questions? We got 2 more questions and we're going to wrap up. Any other questions? Yeah.
That's a cute baby.
Someone I know on the panel belongs to this baby. My question is, do you invest inside of like a solo 401k when you invest? Do you do it to potentially avoid taxation? Does anyone do that?
I don't have a 401k. Yeah, I don't.
Or a self-directed IRA? Or any type of, like a self-directed IRA or any other type of vehicle?
I've loaned money out of mine before. It takes a while to build up. I know some people are really a big fan of doing that. But I think you kind of might have to talk to your financial advisor or like your financial team, right, and your CPA about whether there are tax benefits for your situation for that. That is one way to have like tax-free gains. It just takes a while to build it up.
Okay.
I'm in the process of putting all my stuff in a trust right now. So trying to protect those assets for when I die. But that's a good advice that you got down this row here because, I grew up, my aunt was a stockbroker. I never made any money in the stock market. I don't have any money in the stock market because of that reason, and I got it all in real estate. You can't control stocks, but you can control that real estate. So that's why I put it there.
And what we want to do is really thank everyone here this evening for sharing your wisdom. Thank you, Jack. Thank you, Stacey. Thank you, Slava. Thank you, Jessica. Thank you, thank you so much, John. And we are just so grateful to have you guys on the $1 Million panel. And I'm Milton Ali, and you can reach us at INB Tribe on all social media. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, X, all social media at INB Tribe. You can go to inbtribe.com. You can find our podcast every Monday and Thursday at 9 a.m. And you can also meet us at our groups and our meetups. I'm Milton Ali, and this has been the Investor Tribe Podcast.